Hello, and welcome to my Capstone speech video. For Capstone, we were asked, what do you want, or what do you love? For me, I took a minute and thought, and wasn't quite sure what I wanted or what I loved. So I took another minute and looked around the room and realized everything that is in a classroom or in your room or in your house is machined or built or designed by someone or something. So I thought, I would like to learn more about machines and and maybe machine design. So I looked for machine design in a college, and I found a machine design program, and I thought, that's something I'd like to do. So I feel like my capstone should help me prepare for that. So I started thinking about what I could learn in machine design. I thought about the machines I wanted to use and the machines I've already used, such as drills, presses, mills and lathes, and thought, what haven't I used and what um, do I want to use and become better at? So I thought maybe a CNC machine, a 3D printer, and a welder. Um, and so those were the three machines I wanted to focus on. My capstone project, my capstone project this year was an opportunity for me to get better familiar with machines and the different machines and how they're used and how uh, they can be operated and how they can be troubleshooted. And I wanted to learn more about them and become proficient in them. I wanted to understand the many facets of machine design and see how my talents could be used in this field. I thought this would be a good opportunity for me to improve my already knowledge of some machines and to get to know different machines and get to know them differently and better. For I took a temperament test this summer, and it told me that my personality and my characteristics that like to be build with their hands, like to be working with their hands and seeing things work and seeing things come together. So I thought that's great for me because I know I like building with my hands. So I thought uh, my capstone projects and my capstone itself is really getting into building with your hands, using your hands, becoming more becoming better with working with your hands with machines. So I thought this would be a great opportunity for me to use my hands and just learn about machine design more in depth. Uh, for our first project, of Capstone, we had to interview people. So I interviewed Devin Harwell of R&R Millwork. Devin Harwell has kids who go to Front Range and who graduate from Front Range. R&R Millwork is a wood manufacturing machining company. R&R has contracts with King Soopers, Chipotle Smash Burgers, and movie theaters and yoga studios all around the world, not just in the U.S. Um, they build the wood lockers, and they build the big snack counters for movie theaters. Uh, Devin explained to me that R&R Millwork um, helps people helps people in two different fronts. So for the first front, they hire ex-convicts out of the prison and give them a second chance at life and a second chance of being in the community. And Devin says that this has been really helpful for him and for the convicts that he's hired, and he hasn't had to let any of them go or fire any of them, which is really cool. And the second front is that R&R Millwork is uh, helps fund a nonprofit they have started down in Sierra Leone. It's the nonprofit is a micro business which helps women start their own small little businesses in Sierra Leone. Um, and the Sierra Leone government thought that that was thriving and doing so well that they approached Devin and said, would he be willing to start an orphanage up in Sierra Leone? And after much negotiation and discussion, Devin came back and said they are willing to start an orphanage up in Sierra Leone, and they started an orphanage that is a Christian orphanage in a mostly Muslim country. The main point I took away from my conversation with Devin was that you have to pursue a passion and not pursue a paycheck. And I can see that even though he has been doing well for himself, that he's pursuing a passion through R&R, helping the ex-convicts and the women and children in Sierra Leone. The other man I interviewed was Bob Daly of GoTech, and he has worked with my dad for 30 plus years, and he is a machine fabricator. He works with many machines such as CNCs, mills, and lathes, and he has worked many various jobs, and he said that something very similar to Devin, but he said working and doing something you love is the greatest thing you can do. And once you do that, once you find the job you love, you will realize it and you'll know it, and it'll be, and it's not like something you have to hunt for, but you'll finally like fall into the right job and you'll realize it. He said he found this out working many different labor-intensive jobs, that he wasn't really into lifting heavy things or moving heavy things, so he wanted to do something where he could work with his hands and his mind, and that's what he has been doing with my dad ever since. We had the second part of Capstone was to come up with some projects, service projects. I did 2 service projects. The first was the movable cart for the school wood lathe they got, and that is now sitting in the Genesis Center. And the second project was a movable plant dolly for my mom. But the first project was, in my opinion, was fun because it was just bigger and something new. We used a cart we bought and a steel table top that we had, and we bolted that all down, painted it so that they're all the same color and it looks neat. And then we bolted the lathe down onto the steel table top. We then made a mechanism like an arm for the motor, so when you put the belt on the lathe and attach it to the motor, the tension should hold the belt up, hold the motor up, and so it won't wiggle or jiggle or move anything or break anything. And then we also rewired the on and off switch for the motor because it was very unsafe, so we put it in a junction box and put 2 fuses so that it won't spark, and it will be safe. And I felt that that project was received very well, and I'm excited to have them use it and see how it works. The second project I built was a movable plant dolly, which is for my mom. She has these big ceramic pots, and they're very hard to move with all the dirt loaded in, so we place them on these cart dollies that we built, and this is my first attempt at building one, and it didn't really work out well because the pot was so big and heavy that when you tried to push it, the cart underneath wouldn't move. The pot would try to tip over and fall. So I then decided we needed a new design. So for the second part, I came up with a new design. As you can see, it's a steel plowing disc, and then we made some steel bars and put them on the bottom and welded them to the steel plate, and then we welded the wheels on, and we moved them farther out so that they can be equal distances apart, and they can, when you put the pot, it should distribute the weight properly, and it's easier to move with one person. That project turned out very well, and it's easier to move one pot by yourself instead of having to have two people, someone like pulling the pot and someone pushing the cart. So it was both projects were received well, and I was glad to see my work at the end was very good, and people thought it was good, which made me feel like I have accomplished something. The final part of Capstone was to read a book. I instead watched a SolidWorks video, but it was an 8-hour crash course for beginners on how to run SolidWorks, how to start it up if you're new and first time. And I thought this was very impactful and helpful for me, for someone who wants to learn how to use a CNC machine and SolidWorks. SolidWorks is the program that operates a CNC machine. You can program it into one computer and send it to another computer, and the CNC will start drilling or punching holes or whatever you program it to do. CNC means computer numerical control, and a CNC machine is an automated computer-guided manufacturing tool that allows the operator to construct anything that falls inside an X, Y, and Z axis. So you always have to have the design in SolidWorks attached to a plane or an axis, so that the CNC itself won't think you have something floating in midair, and it won't try to drill deeper than it's supposed to, or won't cut into anything you don't want it to cut. So it saves you a lot of time and money, because it might even break the CNC machine. The neat thing about the CNC machine is that it makes exact replicas for mass production. So I used a CNC machine when I was working with my dad during the summer, and we would make, in about 2 hours, we would make 6 plastic housing pieces for his Bluetooth gauges, and at the end of the day, we would be able to make 50 or 60 plastic housing units, and they're all the same because you can program it once in SolidWorks, and then once it cuts the first 6, you don't have to change anything, so you can keep cutting and cutting. And so you will always have to have an operator, though, with the CNC machine, because you have to make sure that the CNC won't go outside its boundaries or won't break, because if it does break, it's very dangerous. SolidWorks itself costs $1,300 per year, and that's just for the rights to be able to use SolidWorks and be able to run your CNC machine. You have to renew your contract every year to be able to run the program in SolidWorks. I thought that the video for me was more practical than reading a book, because I can now use the knowledge I've learned from the video and try myself on SolidWorks during the summer with my dad. So while going through the Capstone experience, I learned many things on the business side of machining, of the machine design industry, and the manufacturing side of the machine design industry. The main point I took away from the business side was to always do what you love, and to not follow a paycheck but follow a passion. And so I always think about this, and always think about my 2 interviews with Bob Daly and Devin Harwell. The both men live these out in their lives, as you heard, as Devin gives 50% of the company's income to their nonprofit, and Bob Daly, as he's worked many labor-intensive jobs, and after 30 years, he's finally settled down and found a job that he loves and has stayed true to that job. And then more on the manufacturing side, I learned that I really enjoy building and using my hand and watching what I'm doing and seeing that get constructed and going and building it. I also learned to use the different tools, and many that I was not familiar with or wasn't sure how to use. Now I can feel confident in going in and using them properly myself. Also, at the end of the day, when I finished my projects, I was very proud and I knew that I accomplished something. And it's just the sense of seeing other people seeing what you accomplished and knowing that it works and that you did something good. That really, I like that part of the machine design industry as well, because it's useful for other people to use. So you're making someone else's job easier down the line. Another thing I learned for the manufacturing side was when I was building the cart, I uh, accidentally drilled the hole in the tabletop, uh, just off by a few centimeters, and it took me 45 minutes to re-drill the hole and file it down so that we could stick the screw in and bolt it all together. So I need to measure twice and cut once. Um, we had to pick Bible verse for Capstone, and I picked 1 Kings 7:13 through 14. And this is when God is telling King Solomon who to get for building the construction of his temple. And King Solomon sent and brought Hiram from Tyre, a worker in bronze, and he was full of wisdom, understanding, and skill for making any work in bronze. I thought this was fascinating because God is telling Solomon that he wants someone who is skilled in bronze crafting and not just okay at it. So I want to be someone that is skilled in their craft and not just be okay. I want to be a master at it at the end of the day and know that my work is better than just being okay at my trade. Thank you for coming to watch my capstone speech. Have a good day.